The Lovers Pentacle, Chapter 18, 18. Nine of Cups. Siddhanta never mentioned that Jamie suffered from seizures, said Kain, returning. Seizures sometimes manifest at the start of your 20s, suggested Carina, and if Siddhanta didn't mention this seizure, there must be something new. Or maybe he was indeed possessed by a malevolent spirit, suggested Bruno. Be that as it may, I am never playing with a Ouija board ever again, said Santiago, as pale as a ghost. And let's play something else then, said Male. Spin the bottle, said Eugenia, picking up an empty beer bottle. I think I will pass on that, said Esther, opening the patio door. Have fun, children, and do you feel alright, Kain? We can end this party as soon as you start feeling bad. I can fool around for a few more hours, Grandma, said Kain. Grandma Esther kissed Kain on the forehead before returning inside, and Rosanna went with Esther to see what her daughter was up to. And Carl and Oswald were playing chess while watching the movie, and it peeved Oswald that Carl could defeat him so easily. And the adults moved back into the safety of the screen patio, and they had overfed the mosquitoes enough. A bottle was placed in the center of the table. Santiago couldn't help but comment, "There are 2 women and 5 men, and I don't like those odds." "Are you afraid that you're going to like it?" asked Jack, giggling. "I'm just saying that this game is more fun when there's an even number of men and women," said Santiago. "Forget the bottle idea," said Eugenia. "It was stupid. Let's play strip poker instead." "There are children in the house," said Carina, pointing to the patio door, "and there was Anna and Hannah making faces at them. Let me think of something fun but Halloween related. Let's play Kiss, Marry, or Kill." "How does that work?" asked Eugenia. "I say the name of a Halloween character, and then you tell us if you would like to kiss, marry, or kill it," said Carina. "Let me give you an example. The alien from Aliens. Would you kiss it, marry it, or kill it?" "I would kiss its tiny mouth, if only to feel some excitement in my love life," said Eugenia, laughing. The friends played several rounds of that game, and each time it was Eugenia's turn, she expressed her willingness to kiss the dangerous horror movie villain, if only to feel her blood pumping. Eugenia wasn't even doing this on purpose, and it became clear that she wasn't happy with Kain's underperformance in the bedchambers. Carina, seeing Kain becoming saddened, suggested that they try a mummy wrapping contest. Carina brought some toilet paper, and the friends broke up into teams of 2. Carina and Bruno, Kain and Ogelia, Malik and Balthazar, and Jack and Santiago. After the signal, Bruno, Kain, Santiago, and Malik wrapped up in toilet paper their own respective mummies. Bruno was slow and meticulous about the process, and Carina was the shortest person in the party, so there wasn't a lot of mummy to wrap up. Santiago was also making significant progress since his game partner was short and skinny. When Kain noticed that he was losing, he sped up the process, much to the malamusement of Eugenia, and after 5 minutes the competition ended. Bruno ended up in the last place due to his overconfidence, and Santiago and Kain ended up tied for 4th place, and the tie was broken by a foot race. Eugenia was able to run to the other side of the patio while wrapped up in a paper towel. Jack, on the other hand, could only jump from spot to spot. The friends took a group photo of this competition. They played freeze dance next, and they danced, and when the music stopped, if there was a person moving, he got disqualified. They played all the dance team games, including musical chair, twister, and limbo stick. Close to midnight, Stacy came to say her goodbyes, and Halloween had fallen on a weekday, and the kids had school. Oswald called his father, but the man was still busy with work. He tried calling his mother, but the woman was a heavy sleeper. Her husband had told her that he was picking up Oswald, and when nobody to take him home, when nobody picking him up, Stacy took the boy with her. Margaret left little by little. "And can someone take me home?" asked Jeremy. "You should stay in bed," said Esther. You don't know what caused you. We don't know what caused your epilepsy attack, and it is best that you not overtax yourself, at least until we have all the answers. My father used to suffer from epilepsy. It is hereditary. The curse is in my blood. There's nothing that can be done to make it go away," said Jeremy, sighing wearily. "Do you remember anything else about your parents?" asked Esther. "They were barely present when they were alive, so why bother remembering now that they are dead?" said Jeremy coldly. Since Jeremy wanted to go home, Santiago volunteered to drive him there. He also had an ulterior motive for his generosity. With Santiago gone, Kain finally had Eugenia's undivided attention. Kain invited her to a sleepover, and she felt so sorry for Kain that she was unable to say no. Kain entered the shower to wash away the filth, and he was so weary that he sat down on the floor in order to shower. And he had been pushing himself to the limits because he wanted to replace his unhappy memories with new good ones. And in spite of himself, he began to think of his mother Bella, and the more he tried not to think about her, the more he remembered her. "Maybe she's haunting me," said Kain sadly. "Who is haunting you?" said Eugenia, entering the bathroom, and she grew sadder when she saw Kain sitting on the bathtub. "If you were tired, we could have ended the party early. Come to me, my love," and across fields full of lilies at night, the stars shining overhead are witness to our love as bright as the sky, said Kain, reciting poetry to Eugenia. Bruno was often reciting poetry to Carina, so Kain decided to copy Bruno's strategy to see if it would work. This was the first time that Kain had ever told Eugenia that he loved her, and Eugenia drew near Kain, and once again she delivered a sisterly kiss on his cheek. Kain forced a fake smile, and he drew Eugenia into the shower to kiss her on the lips, and the two showered together, and Kain wanted to do more for Eugenia, but he felt extremely weary, and as soon as his head touched the pillow, he immediately fell asleep. Eugenia did not sleep right away, and she spent a good portion of the night meditating on her relationship. And she awoke the following morning to the smell of breakfast, and since the food was delicious, she decided to continue dating Kain for the time being. Only this time she wasn't going to power play him anymore. If she wasn't in a mood to go out, she was going to give him the exact reasons why. And it wasn't the result that Kain wanted, but it at least was an improvement. A week passed, and some semblance of normalcy returned to his life. And Kain removed the bandages from his head, and he frowned when he saw the stitches. He was going to get a beauty scar a few inches over his eyebrow. Every time he looked in the mirror, he was going to remember the day he got kidnapped. Kain sighed wearily. It was time to return to work. He took a deep breath before getting into the car, and he arrived late due to traffic, and nobody cared that he was late. Kain's co-workers were happy to see him again. They wouldn't have blamed him if he had quit his job. And his first order of business was to identify a voice sample, and his co-worker had arrested a few men in connection with Kain's kidnapping. And all that Kain had to do to advance the investigation was identify the voice sample. "I know that this is going to be difficult for you, champ, but we need you to identify the voice of your kidnapper," said Farley, placing his hand on Kain's shoulder. "You already got someone?" asked Kain. "The law works quickly as long as the civilians are willing to cooperate," said Farley. "You mean as long as they're willing to snitch," thought Kain, and he said instead, "I want to see who you have in the holding cell." "Your uncle has forbidden it," lied Farley, "and even without your testimony, they are going to hang for what they did to you." "And what do you have on them?" asked Kain. "Hair samples, blood, fingerprints, your vomit, eyewitnesses, the works," said Farley happily. "They were sloppy because they were panicked." "If you have a reason, why do you need me to identify the voice sample?" asked Kain. "If you don't identify the voices, you are fired," Kain said Farley. "You are a cop, and it is your duty to enforce the law whether you want to or not." "I am sorry, Detective Farley," said Kain, shrinking into himself, and he started to fidget with his fingers the same way he used to when he was a small child. "I will do what you tell me." "That's a good boy," said Farley, slapping Kain's back. Kain went to the interrogation room, and a camera was placed before him, and the prosecutor was there to validate this piece of evidence. Farley placed his hand over Kain's eyes in order to jog his memory. The first soundbite was played. The voice said, "I am so sorry, Kain." "Sound familiar?" asked Farley. Kain shook his head in response. The second voice sample played, and on the negative, the fifth voice sample was familiar. Kain clenched his fist without meaning to. The camera caught the moment when he recognized the voice. The three other voice samples were played, and the fifth voice sample was played again. And again Kain had a primal fear response to that voice. And Foley tortured Kain with the memory of the day for half an hour, and before he got carried away, Kain entered the interrogation room, and Kain allowed his nephew to escape the situation, and when the door closed behind Kain and Farley got into a shouting match. Kain returned to his desk to work on his forensic drawings, and when he got bored of the task, he went to the donation center to load the food into his patrol car, and he drove to Camilo's house to feed the homeless. The homeless cheered seeing their favorite police officer, and he was the only volunteer that cooked like everyone's grandma. Eyeing Kain was a volunteer, Yareli, and it was a relief to see that he was still in uniform, and she had heard the news that he had gotten kidnapped and beaten up by dangerous gangster. And slowly Yareli inched herself closer and closer to Kain while she served her food, and she reached into her purse to touch up her makeup, and she felt when she saw her own reflection in the mirror. Staring back at her was a round face with full of Botox, monolith eyes, and dyed blonde hair. Kain was too focused on his cooking to notice Janelli's flirtatious advances, and the woman did everything, including unbuttoning the top button of her blouse as part of her pecan strategy. She did everything except speaking first. Janelli felt that if she started to converse first, Kain would be able to smell her desperation. Kain finished feeding the homeless, and he served himself a plate that he had, and he sat down among them in order to eat his meal. Yareli brought her homemade lunch as she sat down before Kain, and he made eye contact with her for a second, and he grimaced when he saw her Botox lips and her partially frozen eyebrows. And back when Bella lived, she was always enlarging her lips with Botox. Anything that reminded Kain of his mother, he instantly despised. Kain picked up his lunch to go eat at a different table, and with no word spoken, Kain had shown Janelli that he found her presence disagreeable. Kain finished his lunch quickly, and he saw Yareli walking towards him in order to start a conversation. Kain ran to his patrol car, and he turned on the ignition key, and he sped away back to the safety of Uncle Gen's police station. "You are back early," commented Siddhanta, who was taking his lunch break. "There was this creepy woman chasing after me, so I left early," explained Kain, sitting down in the break room, and he looked up towards the talking light bulb, and it wasn't flickering anymore. "Someone must have called an electrician." "More the pity," said Siddhanta. "It is silly how one can miss a conversation of an inanimate object." "How are things with Jeremy?" asked Kain. "Terrible, but you get used to it," said Siddhanta. "He's giving me the silent treatment, and when he sees himself alone, he cries non-stop for hours. And he's acting like a jealous ex-girlfriend, and it is irritating. He should have made peace with the current state of affairs by now." "I take it you two were a couple?" asked Kain, gossiping. "When I said that Jeremy was acting like a jealous ex-girlfriend, I didn't mean it in the literal sense," said Siddhanta. "We had never ever slept together. Jeremy's like a little brother." Siddhanta and Jeremy had been made in pairs as teenagers, but Siddhanta had outgrown him. Siddhanta felt like the two had irreconcilable differences. He was a social butterfly while Jeremy was allergic to other human beings. And whenever Siddhanta dated a woman, Jeremy became intolerable to be around with. And he couldn't fully enjoy himself with Jeremy looking so miserable. And for this reason, Siddhanta kept pressuring Jeremy to go into going to other parties and social gatherings. And he hoped that he wasn't the only person in this world capable of getting along with Jeremy. "Did Jeremy not click with Balthazar?" asked Siddhanta, changing the subject. "Jeremy claims that he's seen someone already," said Kain, gossiping. "Really? If we have found someone who puts up with him, why haven't we been formally introduced?" said Siddhanta, smiling happily. "His new boyfriend is a rich married guy. That's why we haven't been formally introduced," said Kain, repeating everything that Jeremy said. "He goes to Jeremy to do all the dirty deeds his Puritan wife refuses to do, and at the end of their engagement, she gives Jeremy expensive gifts and sometimes money." "It sounds like your little brother is prostituting himself," commented a co-worker who was eavesdropping. "It isn't prostitution if there is no solicitation," said the female lawyer. There isn't a law that forbids a person from being a gold digger. Relax, Siddhartha. You look like you're about to pop a blood vessel, said an officer, slapping Siddhartha in the back of the head. Here, have a donut. Siddhartha devoured the donut in 4 aggressive bites, and on his final bite, he bit down on his thumb. And he looked at the clock and he wanted to confront Jeremy, but he had strong work ethics. The lunch break came to an end, and before going on patrol, Kain gave his co-workers more bad news. Jeremy suffered a seizure last Halloween, said Kain, so when you talk to him, go easy on him, and Lola wants him to stop by her clinic to do tests, and all he said about his malady is that he inherited the curse from his father. Jeremy sometimes feigns illness for attention, retorted Siddhartha. It was a little too real for it to be an act, said Kain, and even before the seizure he stopped blinking and his shaking started at the hands before spreading to the rest of the body. Your brother's not well, and Lola wants him to go to the clinic to get his head checked out. A lot of good that would do, said Siddhartha, scratching his hair nervously. Look, Kain, there's nothing wrong with Jeremy, and he faked the seizure, the end of story. You can believe whatever helps you sleep at night, Siddhartha, said Kain. But I know what my eyes saw, and that seizure was a little too real, and your brother's not well. The sooner you accept this reality, the quicker you can give him the help he so desperately needs. Siddhartha finished his shift, and he spent all the time extremely distracted, and he didn't wanna believe that there was anything wrong with Jeremy. And when Siddhartha arrived home, he got a text from Unla. The doctor wanted to know when he was going to send Jeremy to her clinic. And he was the only person that was in denial about the situation. And he fumbled with the keys as he opened the door. And Jeremy opened the door for Siddhartha, and it was time for the two to face the music. The following day, Kain was in a good mood, and there wasn't a cloud in the sky, and he arrived to work early, and he frowned when he looked at the stack of paperwork on top of his desk, and since he wasn't in the mood to be a secretary, he went to his patrol car to drive around the neighborhood, and it was far too beautiful a day to waste away in the station doing paperwork. He saw a group of peaceful protesters by the roadside, and he parked his car nearby. And he was curious to see what they were so worked up about. And the protesters were demanding higher wages for teachers, and they grew tense when they saw a police officer approaching them. And they relaxed when Kain sat down underneath a shaded tree to sketch. The hours rolled peacefully by with Kain keeping an eye on the peaceful protesters, and a maiden with a petition sheet came to Kain. And Kain saw her both asleep, and he was immediately grossed out by them. And he proceeded to tune out everything she said, and he didn't like it when women spoke to him as if he was an idiot. And such a condescending tone reminded Kain of his mother Bella, and everything having to do with Bella was bad. And he dusted himself on the floor before going to the patrol car. And the woman was extremely offended by how Kain had ignored her, and she threw a drink at his patrol car, and Kain responded by getting out his handcuffs. The maiden in a panic fled into the safety of the peaceful protester, and one of her peers tripped her and she fell to the floor, and this made it easier for Kain to handcuff the woman. The woman pitched a fit during the entire arrest process, and none of her friends interfered. She had thrown coffee at a police car. She had brought that cruel fate upon herself. Kain began, "You had the right to remain silent." Once the woman was inside the patrol car, she changed her tone. "Look, I am sorry, officer, I was out of line, and can you just give me a fine and we can call it a day?" Kain said, "Everything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law." "I need to pick up my son in 1 hour," insisted the maiden. "You had the right to an attorney," said Kain, driving away. "If you take me to prison, I am suing," said the maiden. "If you cannot afford that," continued Kain. Kain arrived to the police station after a 20 short-minute drive, and every time the woman opened her mouth, Kain answered with the Miranda rights. Kain opened the patrol car, and the woman pushed herself away from Kain with the look of a cornered rat. "Resign yourself to your fate," said Kain coldly. "The more you resist, the worse it's going to be for you." "Please, please," said the woman, crying. "I have a son. I need to go pick up my son." Kain closed the patrol car. He didn't like being rough with uncooperative female criminals. He looked with his eyes for one of the few female police officers. "Ted, I have a criminal who doesn't want to get out of the patrol car. Can you help me with her?" I truly do wish you would grow out some cojones, said Officer Tess, instead of asking me to manhandle all your female perps. Tess went to Kane's patrol car and she giggled seeing the hood of the car black with coffee stain. Tess, who was a sadistic at heart, brought out her taser and she made the lightning crack as a threat display. The criminal left the car of her own accord. Please, I learned my lesson. I have a son, repeated the maiden. Ah, if I had a nickel, said Tess, laughing. You are not talking your way out of this situation, lady. Tess pushed the woman into the police station before unceremoniously dumping her into the holding cell. Tess added, let's see if an ad in the holding cell teaches you to respect the officers of the law. Please, you made your point. I learned my lessons. I am sorry. I have a son. I am all he has, repeated the maiden from behind the bars. Blah, 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 said Tess, departing, and she pulled at Kane's heart to get the kid away from the situation. For God's sake, said the woman, reaching into her wallet to hold up a picture of her son. Please, he's only a little boy. I'm all he has. Keep it down, bitch, said a prostitute who was sleeping off her hangover. Kain turned his head to look at the woman who was screaming her head off, and his eyes fell on the small photo of her little boy. Kain returned to the holding cell, and he took the wallet of the woman. The maiden was called Remula Quintanilla, and she was medium-near height, age 31, and her father was Cuban and her mother was of Hindu Muslim. And from her mother she had inherited her olive skin, her hourglass shape, and delicate hands, and from her father she had gotten her puffy menina hair and her expressive amber eyes. Where is your son's daycare? asked Kain. Are you going to let me out? asked Romula. Yes, lied Kain, but first I need to verify if you indeed have a son. All the criminal maidens we had ever arrested always say that they have a son as a plea for mercy, and I need you to prove to me that you're not like all of the other crooks who came before. Romola was saved from the situation by Farley, and he had finished his boxing match with Ken, and Farley's face was a bloody mess while his boss Ken didn't have a single scratch on it. Farley didn't make a big deal about it since he was the one who threw the first punch. He had underestimated his short, overweight boss. Romola, what did you do? Why are you in jail? asked Farley, coming over to the holding cell. Officer Farley, thank God, please let me out. My son is just getting out of daycare, and he will be sad if I'm not there to pick him up. For God's sake, please let me go, begged Romola. What do you do? insisted Farley. I threw my coffee at the man's car, and I'm so sorry, and I learned my lesson. Please, please, please let me go and give me a fine, and I am begging. Please let me go already. She also resisted arrest, said Tess Giddy. I almost had to taser her to get her out into the station. Farley opened the holding cell to allow Romola to go, and he said to Kain, put her back where you found her. Not my monkey, not my circus, said Kain dryly. Hey, who are you calling a monkey? asked Romola, shaking her fist at Kain. If you do not want to be called a monkey, start acting like a rational human being, said Kain coldly. And I feel sorry for your son, who has no choice but to live with an emotionally unstable woman. If you snap in Polly just because I didn't want to sign your petition, one can only imagine what abuses your son endures in private. In the privacy of the prison, you had the goal to call a home. Alright, that's the end of that chapter. Bye-bye. God bless.